Hello and welcome. I'm Chaotic Neutral Cosplay, and today we're going to be doing a Thousand Autumns or Chenchu discussion. So that's coming out sometime. I think the first novel releases in March.
They just released the cover art.
I know, I'm so excited.
So
right? It was ironic because the very day they released it, I had posted my Yanwushi from the donghua, and I was like, I can't wait to see the English cover art. And then an hour later, like my DMs are flooded with people sending me the cover art, and they're like, you, and I'm like, well, okay. So anyway, joining me today, I have
Perfection. I'm Perfection everywhere on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Hi, I am Cloudpop.cos. Anywhere you would like to look for me.
Hi, I'm Heather, or One Hell of a Cosplayer on pretty much everything, or Valkyrie.cos on Twitch, I think is the only thing I have that handle, or Yelling Kazoo on Twitter because I don't know how to make decisions.
Hey, I'm Julian. I go by Mika. My cosplay Insta is Mikaelya.cos.
I'm very excited that all of you guys are joining me today. And as a surprise plot twist, all of you guys have read a portion of Thousand Autumns today. So I'm excited about that because last time it was me and Nori who had read Golden Stage, and we were like, this is amazing! And you guys were like, this sounds amazing, but I've never read it. So this is exciting. I know not, I think that Julian and I are the only ones who have read it all the way through. No, you reed it all the way through.
I did read it all the way through, but I also read it like before sleep.
It was a noom.
It was before sleep, and I don't know how much I absorbed of it. So, but technically, I have read it all the way through.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you.
In theory, she has read it.
But do I know what happens?
Do we know what happens? Yeah. Well. Yunshen, that's the important thing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with kind of the content warnings, which I like to do kind of beforehand. Just if you want to pick up the novel, you kind of know what's going on. Especially Thousand Autumns, I feel like is very... If you're coming from mxtx going to Thousand Autumns, it's a much darker tone for a novel. And there's a lot more serious themes in it, so I want to start with just the content warnings so you're aware of that. It's a fantastic novel. There's just a lot of darker themes in it. So I'm going to go ahead and read them, the ones that I wrote down. We're going to start off with like the heavy ones. There's a lot of cannibalism in Thousand Autumns, so that's a great thing. There's also a lot of rape or attempted rape, forced physical romance interactions, selling others into slavery or selling others into sexual slavery, manipulation, psychological manipulation, seeking to induce trauma, infidelity, lying, gore, body horror / manipulation, murder, attempted murder, court politics, betrayal, political corruption at its worst, very, very late romance novel. It's the romance is in the extras. Too many side characters that get too long of a backstory and do absolutely nothing. This novel it's literally set in the darker side of the cultivation world, but we see the main character, Shin Chao, shining through and helping pave the way to a brighter world in addition to changing the way the love interest sees the world. It is meant to be a dark novel and show the darker side of human nature to kind of enhance the light that is Shin Chao, that he is able to basically show people how to be better people.
Why haven't we done a demon Wanyoshi and angel Shenchao yet?
I honestly don't know. We really should do that.
Yeah.
Probably because we don't cosplay them very often, but we really need to. So those are the content warnings that I came up with while I was reading through Thousand Autumns. So now that we've gone through all of those,
I think the checklist. I think that's like the Danmei checklist.
Yeah, I think that's all of
we're
it.
going to start off very strong with the cannibalism.
You just set the expectations high.
So now that we've gone through that, I'm going to read through my pluses, which is the reasons that you should read this novel. This is the enemies to lovers, and the bad one is soft for the good one trope big time. So if you are in any way soft for that trope, like I am, this is an excellent novel for it. It is another novel, similar to Golden Stage, where the author has expanded the world and has other novels set in the same world. So if you can't get enough of this world, there are other novels set in the same setting. It's excellent world building, though it can be a little bit confusing because it's so vast. Think it like almost Lord of the Rings vast. It's expansive. It is another novel like Golden Stage that references real life characters and historical events. I say characters, but real life historical figures and actual historical events that happened. Yeah, actual people.
Humans.
So it can be a little confusing, not being familiar with Chinese culture, where again, they do the thing where they talk about a person doing something significant as though you know what it is. And you're like, this is significant.
We don't learn this stuff.
Yeah. So then if you want to understand it, sometimes the author's notes will say something, but usually you have to go and you Google it. And Google was very helpful for me for a couple things. I was like, why are they talking about this person? I don't know who this is. So I Googled them, and it was cool to learn that way. So there's that opportunity to actually learn a little bit more, which is cool.
It also has Yu Shengyun and Bian Yanmei, and I just think they are amazing, and they are unfortunately not appreciated enough in the donghua, so you should definitely read it for
They're
that.
like this. They're like fenching. They're a little bit like fenching in like. So if you like them from TGCF, they're
except they don't argue.
They don't argue, but
they're like fenching if they get along. And then this is just a very, very good story about how one person can change like the depth of humanity. It's just, Shen Chao is such a good protagonist. I normally don't like protagonists who are pure white, but he's so well written.
He picks up with Yanrushi.
He does
so
and
much.
He's such a well written character because he forgives a lot, but then when you cross a line, he's also like that was the line, you've gone too far. No. And I think that really makes him very realistic, but he's also genuinely such a good person that he kind of inspires you to want to do better, in addition to like inspiring the characters in the novel. So it's just a really good book for that.
If you are just here for the romance, though, I would suggest personally just watching the donghua or skipping to the extras, because there is not a lot of romance. It's a very slow burn. The romance doesn't come in till the extras, but it is an excellent novel.
Thoughts, comments on any of that?
I mean, the donghua is all soft and fluffy, and I really like it. And I hope it gets a second season. Like, everything needs a second season. I don't know why. Yeah.
Thousand Autumns is definitely my favorite Danmei novel, specifically because of what you were saying. Like how it's just so focused on Shen Chao, who's such like a wonderful, like kind and morally upright person being stuck in this like terrible world where everything terrible happens to him. At every turn. And I think that's why I find it also so interesting, because especially mxtx, like the cultivation world or the wuxia world is like it's typically portrayed as very righteous, but in this novel it's the exact opposite. And so Shen Chao has to now like face this world that he thought was so righteous, but is actually very terrible. And I really love the story because of that, because it is this deconstruction of the genre.
Yeah, and like he was kind of sheltered in his sect. Like his sect, I feel like wasn't the worst, but there were bad actors in his sect, and like
bad actors.
Well, I don't know. There were
who
douchebags in his sect. Yeah, that's what
they were bad actors. They were just exiled there because they were bad actors. I'm sorry, that's what I picture like.
It's a phrase.
They didn't finish their art degree.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, like Julian was saying, the way Thousand Autumns is set up, it's very reminiscent of pretty much all cultivation novels, where you have the sects in the mountains that are kind of isolated from the world. Well, think about it. That's where you have Modazushi. That's where Xiao Xingchen is from, the isolated sect in the mountain that is righteous, and they're pure and righteous. And then they come down into the world to like fix the corruption in the world. And that's kind of what you would think is happening here, but it's really Shen Chao's sect is just as corrupt as the rest of the world, and he's kind of slammed with that and kind of has to wrestle. You don't really see him wrestling with the decision, but I think he does internally to be like, am I going to still be a good person? Am I going to give in like Yan Wuxi wants me to be this as corrupt as the rest of the world? And it's interesting because he chooses to
continue to be upright and righteous and do the right thing, even though, like, I think really pretty much anybody else, realistically speaking, put in a position like him where somebody's orchestrating all these situations to try to break you,
we would eventually break. So it's really an interesting novel in that.
Yeah, I literally cannot fathom how, like, the entire time I'm reading this novel, I'm like, how does Shen Chao not break at this moment? What is going through his mind to make him keep going? Like, that was making me keep reading the book for sure.
So we're going to talk about the 18 plus part of the novel, because I always like to include that, because that's what we read these novels for, right? For the most part. So as far as like angst. 18 plus, sexual, smutty stuff. There's nothing explicit in Thousand Autumns, at least in the novel and the first 6 extras. There is a fade to black sex scene at the end of, I think it's the sixth extra, but don't quote me on that. There are discussions of sexual intent throughout the novel, so it is a present theme, but nothing explicit ever happens.
Kiss at the end of the novel, though? Is that like the
no, that's in the extras.
That is in the extra?
Yeah, that's
wow.
all of every. There were
They do
moments
kiss.
happens.
They do kiss at some point.
Well, they do, but I think it's forced.
It's forced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they kissed a couple times, but it's because Yan Wuxi forces it. So the only time like that you could say that Shen Chao is an active participant is in the extras. So yeah.
Yeah, that gives me Scum Villain vibes, honestly, because that was the entirety of Scum Villain too. But I feel like in Scum Villain it's more played to be funny. In this one, it's really like there are some moments when I'm just like, Yan Wuxi, please stop.
Yeah, in Scum Villain, it's very much like, oh god, the protagonist is kissing me. This is weird. I guess I'm just gonna do that.
But I'm still straight.
Because
Because
the first time it's like, yeah, because the first time it's just in like the dream, and it's like, well, I guess this is fine.
Yeah.
And she's like, but yeah, I could see 1,000 Autumns being a little in the other direction.
The first time they kiss in Thousand Autumns, they are traveling with somebody to go somewhere and help them, because Yan Wuxi is playing at being a good character to
Get Shen Chao.
to make Shen Chao's, like, to annoy Shen Chao, because Shen Chao knows Yan Wuxi is not a good person, but he's playing at it, so he's playing along with Shen Chao. So they're traveling, and they're in a carriage, and the carriage itself is, I think, come under attack or something, or the guy who's running the carriage, for some reason, he's going into the carriage that Yan Wuxi and Shen Chao are sharing. And Yan Wuxi knows that he's coming in. So he locks Shen Chao's acupuncture point so he can't move, and then he proceeds to kiss him, and French kiss him. And Shen Chao gets so pissed off he passes out. And that's their first kiss.
So yeah, there's Scum Villain, and then there's Thousand Autumns. And Thousand Autumns, it is a very good novel if you want to see Yan Wuxi be like, oh, I fucked up. I need to do better. But he doesn't know how to do better towards the end of the novel, so he's still himself trying to do better to prove to Shen Chao. He's like, no, you could love me too. But also at the same time, there's a lot of dark elements to it. So you need to know that going in. If that's something that makes you uncomfortable in a romance, it's very prevalent in Thousand Autumns.
It's interesting because the donghua is actually more romantic than the novel.
It is.
And this is something I wanted to address because I've seen a lot of people go, oh, I love the donghua, I can't wait to read the novel. And I came from the donghua. I watched the donghua, I fell in love with the donghua, and I went and I read the novel because I wanted more of their romance. And I did read the entire novel, and I enjoyed the novel. However, I was slapped in the face because I was like, this is completely different from the donghua.
I think
There's so much more romance in the donghua, which is wild to say, than in the novel. Yan Wuxi is in more of the donghua than he is in like the first half of the novel, which is really interesting.
It's not that it's a bad book, but just if you are coming with that mindset of this is going to be the donghua in novel form, that's not what it is.
I don't read the book at all for its romance, actually. And I read it purely for the themes, and they definitely leaned heavier on the romance in donghua, and then they went lighter on the themes. And so in that essence, I was actually a bit disappointed by it.
When you say themes, do you mean like the psychological manipulation, or like I'm just
Shen Chao being like
I'm just curious. Yeah.
More like the light of the, not the light of the world, but kind of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like the good and evil themes, more so.
Okay, I'm
I
just
think.
curious.
I mean, I've seen the donghua. I've read half a chapter of the book. I can definitely, I mean, just reading that half chapter and how much information was there, I can definitely believe that it is much different than like
Maybe
especially
the
because the first season dropped a lot of the characters that you would need to continue for a second
Didn't
season.
they drop one?
There's no
Yeah, they dropped
I'm
the
like, where is
Yanmei.
he?
They did.
Yeah, he's not in the donghua. His scenes in the donghua are given to Yu Shenyan. Yeah, so like his. No, I'm sad too. I'm just like, but you can't just put like it's like combining Fenching into one character, and I'm not sure how that works.
Well, yeah, even in the donghua, I feel like there's a ton of characters right off the bat that they throw. Even if it's not like, you know, even a fraction of what's in the book, there's still like a lot of names that get thrown at you, and you're like, I have no idea what this means.
Yeah.
I have no idea who this is. Like characters you haven't even met yet, who don't even have like a face to their name until like 4 episodes in, and you're like, what?
Yeah, when I just like assume whenever I get hit with a ton of like names and exposition up front, I'm like simply do not pay attention, and I'm like, if this is important, it will come up later, and then I will learn it. But if it's not, this is whoop, it's gone.
Okay, so one thing I will say about Thousand Autumns, as opposed to Golden Stage that we talked about last time, Golden Stage is really good about bringing up just a couple sentences. If you're like, I don't remember this character, they're like, oh, do you remember that dude that we talked about who was Fu Shen's uncle's old servant and his daughter? Yeah, that's them. You know, this one doesn't do that. Occasionally, like, characters that they talk about will come back up, and you're like, who the is this person? Like, I do not, like, what? There's actually, I think, 3 evil sects in the book, and the leader of the 3rd one shows up twice. The second time he shows up, they don't give him any sort of an introduction. They just name drop him, and he's there, and he's doing stuff, and you're like, what? Who is he? Why is he significant? Why does everyone know him? And I had to sit there for a minute, and then I had to go back and be like, look through all the pages, and then I finally figured out who he was. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So unfortunately, Thousand Autumns is not very good about reminding you who these characters are, which frustrated me quite a bit reading it, because I was like, who are you?
But also they do a lot of these things where they have these characters like this, like I said, there's one guy that comes up when Yan Wuxi is meditating in a cave.
As you do.
Well, he's been wounded. He's been injured.
So he's in a cave, and Shen Chao shows up to drive this guy off and save him, and then Shen Chao there's a whole thing. But this guy shows up, and there's like a 2-paragraph or like half a page expedition about who this guy is and why Yan Wuxi has offended him and why he hates Yan Wuxi.
I remember this guy now,
like,
yeah.
Yeah,
and then I think it's either Yan Wuxi wakes up and like pops him away, or Shen Chao is just like no, and like bonks him with his stick, and then you never see him again, and that's it. And I'm like, why was he here? What did he enhance the novel at some at some level? I'm like, and I was waiting for this guy to come back in and like, I'm gonna revenge you, and no, he never comes back, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like,
This is why
okay,
you create note documents in your phone with every single like named character and continuously update them, because it's the only way to do it.
This novel needs that, I think.
it does.
I think
And it's
every novel
sad
needs a character
because there's
trait.
actually that already exists. If you Google like Thousand Autumns, either names or characters, there's people have made
hopefully
documents
they'll put that in
for this.
the translation, the official
and
English translation.
stuff like
probably.
that. So that already exists, and then there's already a world map. That's literally a map that somebody has drawn and labeled all the countries that are mentioned and has the
that's
rules of the countries, because Thousand Autumns has a lot of political drama.
And it features very heavily in the plot because it's pretty much all Yan Wuxi and Shen Chao are doing the entire novel.
Because isn't like Yan Wuxi like a friend of the emperor?
And it's political stuff, and they're removing rulers and putting new rulers in, and it's very heavily involved in the plot, and it gets really confusing. So it is a little bit more difficult to read in that sense, because you have to be aware of, hell yeah, that's who this guy is, or that sort of stuff. The main couple in Thousand Autumns are Shen Chao, who's the main character, and Yan Wuxi, who is the most powerful demonic cultivator in the world. He's one of the 3.
He's the leader
of one of the 3 demonic sects, which used to be one sect under their master, and then it's split, and now they're all fighting amongst each other. Yeah, we love him.
Evil bastard.
Interestingly enough, he is the nicest of the 3 demonic leaders, and his demonic sect is the nicest of the 3 demonic sects. That does not mean that when I say demonic sect, I think a lot of people think like
Yiling patriarch,
where they're just living in,
and all the righteous sects are
and that is not what this novel is. They are absolutely demonic sects. They are out there, not Yan Wuxi sects, but one of the other ones like cultivates by raping people. So that's a thing, and that's a thing. And eventually that sect kind of gets a new leader, and they turn away from that. But that is a theme throughout the thing, and so they're very evil.
So it starts Yan Wuxi has like been cultivating, or he's been by himself away, and he's coming back, right?
Yeah, he's been cultivating
Secluded
for-
meditation for like 10 years.
10
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
I just read the opening of the novel, so I'm like, this is the only thing I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, first 12 chapters, give me a kiss.
I mean, I know in like the donghua basically throws you kind of in, and he's just kind of milling around at the bottom of this cavern, and Shen Chao's like, what?
Yeah. And that's pretty much how the novel starts. Yan Wuxi has just come back, and he and his disciple pick up Shen Chao, who just had a battle with
One of the other.
with this is gets it immediately starts off the bat with political stuff, because there's another sect
that's headed by I should know his name, but anyway, Shen Chao's master defeated him and exiled this guy for like 30 years, 50 years to the Central Plain. So this guy who's been exiled has started his own sect out there, and his head disciple has come back to battle Shen Chao and defeat Shen Chao, and basically has fed Shen Chao a poison to block all of his chi and stuff and made him blind. And so Shen Chao falls off this mountain thousands of meters in the air and somehow survives
But
magically.
He loses his memory.
Cultivators, am I right?
Yeah.
right?
I mean, all of his bones are broken, and he lost all his chi and all his memories, and he's blind now. But you know,
But
he's still
alive.
alive. He can still get picked up by Yan Wuxi and his other guys.
Okay, so the interesting thing is Shen Chao probably would have died at that point, except Yan Wuxi is like, hey, Shengyan, I know that you have these magic medicine pills to save your life while you're cultivating out here doing the things that I told you to do, but I want you to give them all to this dude right now.
Yeah. So
This dude that just fell like thousands and thousands of feet in front of us, give him to him.
Yeah.
Without going into too much into the plot, Shen Chao basically wakes up, and Yan Wuxi tries to convince him that he is a member of the demonic sect, and Shen Chao eventually figures out he's not, because he doesn't want to do any of the evil things. And then Yan Wuxi has decided, for whatever reason, that he's really invested in making this head cultivator of the righteous sect join the evil sect. So, or the evil gang.
The evil gang.
Translated in the
translated in the evil gang.
Evil gang. Evil gang.
You want to join my evil gang, Chao? No.
I have a stick. I'll find you.
We have gang
I
signs.
have a stick that you gave me, but it's still my stick now.
He breaks his stick a lot in the donghua.
Yeah.
Or not the donghua, in the novel. It's very sad.
This is like slightly off, but I just wanted to bring it up because we were talking about Shen Chao being blind.
Mhm.
I found it very interesting how the donghua does it. It's actually because like there are moments where you might slightly forget that Shen Chao still can't see, but then they kind of remind you very subtly, and you're like, right, okay, never mind, just kidding. Like somebody will say something, and it doesn't feel super out of place. That was one of the things I kind of liked about that, because there are plenty of shows where it's like, yeah, you're following this main character. This character's supposed to be blind. This character's supposed to be whatever. And they don't do a good job of like reminding you of that, because it's a show. You can see the show. You can watch the show.
Right.
So it's like you forget that character can't. But I feel like they do a good job bringing that up.
I just want one scene of Shen Chao like talking to a plant, though. Like
Walking into a wall.
He eventually does get his sight back, eventually, because that's always how it works in Danmei. But, magic. Except for Xiaoxing Chen. Xiaoxing Chen does not get another set of eyes, but...
Because I remember that part from the donghua, because that part is in the donghua.
Right.
And I feel like, and it's been a while since I've watched it, but I feel like he mentioned something in the beginning about being able to tell light and dark, like being able to tell day from night and stuff like that before. But yeah, I do remember, because that was actually one of the moments where it was kind of like a reminder, like where it's like, oh, yeah, he couldn't see before. Wait a second.
I want to talk about the monkey people now.
Okay.
Hey, boys, you got 30 minutes to spare.
It's monkey people time.
Monkey people time. So I think one of my favorite things about
Thousand Autumns is that makes sense. Like, I could be a cultivator if I were to try. It kind of makes sense. And then you get to the middle of the plot, and they're traveling through the desert to go to the city to retrieve something, and all of a sudden, like, this just giant pit opens up, and they fall into this underground kingdom of monkey people. Who are trying to kill all of them
The
in the dark.
fantasy creatures of this world are
and
monkey
it specifically
people.
talks about the monkey people have evolved to like the super intelligent beings, and you're like, so we don't have gods or dragons, but we have hyper intelligent monkey people. Okay, and I
It just
I
comes
love
out of
that
nowhere,
specific
like-
section because it's just like,
And then
you're like,
you
what?
leave the Monkey Kingdom
And then they
people
never
and you don't,
talk about it again.
Yeah, like that just didn't
and
happen.
I'm just like, oh,
It's
okay.
so like random too, because it's like, you know, they're just doing
And
their
I know
normal
that,
adventure. Like,
I'm aware that like monkey people, or I don't know if they have a specific name, but that is a theme in like certain Chinese novels.
well, I mean, like Goku
but-
is like,
yeah,
like,
which that is a theme in certain Chinese novels. But at the same time, like, usually they mention that, you know, or they give you some indication that, oh yeah, there might be some other form of like life out there. But no, Thousand Autumns is just like, okay, here you go. Here's the random, you know,
6
thing you didn't
chapters
expect.
of
Yeah,
monkey
6
people,
chapters
and
of-
then you're done.
And then you're done. And then it's back to your normal cultivation novel, and you're like, oh,
It's like I feel like you could have
Okay.
cut out that
I
portion
don't know what's
and
going on.
and like just
You don't
I'm
get
mis-
a beach episode. You get the monkey
You get the
people cave
monkey
episode.
beach
clearly.
episode.
Yeah.
This is
I'm
the alternative.
assuming that ties back to the Chinese story Journey to the West, I believe is what it translates to, with Sun Wukong,
Yeah.
because he's like king of the monkeys, and so he's
Right.
like a monkey god and has like a kingdom of monkeys,
Mhm.
supposedly. So I'm assuming that's what that comes back to.
You would assume so, but I don't know because
Doesn't
like
feel like it at
Yeah.
all.
it
Yeah.
doesn't.
It doesn't.
It really just
loosely.
feels like there's an evolved form of monkeys living in the desert, and they want to kill the humans.
Honestly, sure. You know what? Let's do it. I love
To
it.
be
Great.
honest, I forgot
This is-
the entire part, CJ. I'm sorry. I think it's because it didn't make any sense. My mind
It
just
doesn't make
blanked it
sense.
out.
Yeah, no, I know.
Everybody blanks it out, and that's why I love bringing it up to see people's reactions, because it's just the weirdest. It may like I don't know why it's in the novel. And again, like I know that there's like Heather was saying, there's the story, and that's a prominent theme in different even other Danmei I've seen mention it. But in Thousand Autumns, you're just like, no dragons, no gods, just cultivation, monkey people, cultivation, and you're just like, what?
I think it's like a high-end wuxia, so it's got like the magic martial arts, but yeah, then it doesn't cross over that like different life forms can cultivate.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's a very interesting part
Yeah.
that I'm just always like, I want to know what your reaction to it is.
but the monk, but
Maybe the author was like, I just want to see if you're paying attention.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
They're
Like, little
self-aware. They're like,
check-in
hold on a second. You're not gonna like. I want to really see who narrows in on this. Like, and then like the people who forgot it, it's like, oh, you weren't really reading the novel, ha ha ha. You know, and then CJ.
you wouldn't remember the monkey people I put in there. It was a trick. You called them for my room.
It's like the Willy Wonka like golden ticket. Like,
but
Tell me
also
about
but
the
also
monkey
like
people, and I will give you a reward.
but also just imagine the monkey people cultivating though. Like I'm
Yeah,
like
I don't
monkey.
know if it's mentioned if they cultivate or just that they're like more evolved.
I don't think they do.
I don't specifically remember. I just remember being like, what the fuck?
That brings up, sorry, this is about to get a little off topic. That brings up the question of evolved monkey. Is that not like, so what is the standard of evolution in this world then? Because is that not what like human evolution? So like, did they like go past human and become monkey again, or did they just like
It does
maybe
mention that they
diverge?
were monkeys, but then they've evolved like
Past human standards because they are more intelligent and stronger than humans. So
Next stage
it's
is
really
telekinetic monkeys.
yeah, well, almost because it's really weird because like it's really weird because again, you just have this novel where
nothing, and then all of a sudden they're talking about like monkeys that have evolved to be stronger than humans, but live in an underground city, so their weakness is light. And you're like, what?
CJ, I appreciate you got your half-hour discourse on the monkey people.
all right, we can discuss other things. I just needed to see your reaction to the monkey people.
So continuing
One of
on.
the other things that I really enjoy
about Thousand Autumns is like Shen Chao's ability to collect children.
Oh yeah.
I want to go off on this for a minute.
It's in
So
my
there's
canon.
one character. If you've seen the donghua, you probably know him. If you've read the books, he's very prevalent in the books. It's Chen Gong,
No,
and
Terrible.
Shengon
He's
just
annoying.
like her.
Shen Chao specifically tells him, and he's 16 in the books, and specifically tells him, no, I do not want apprentices, you need to leave.
Yeah.
And Shen Gong has been like, please be, he's practically laid down and begged, Shen Chao to take him as his apprentice, and Shen Chao was like, no, go away. And then the next 3 children he meets, he adopts. And I'm like, the Shen Chao, including one who's 18. So I'm just like, it's like, I know not a lot of people like him, and I understand why, he's annoying, but I'm also like, why does Shen Chao say no to him and then collect the rest of these children? But also, I love the rest of his children.
Is it like skip 1, take 3, skip 1, take
maybe,
like,
yeah.
there's a pattern, but like, because I think in the donghua at first he says like, because I think he takes him somewhere else.
Yeah,
He's
and
like,
he
okay,
leaves
you
him.
stay here.
They're traveling
Right.
together. So and then when
Yes.
Shen Gong is actually like, please take me as your apprentice, because he realizes Shen Chao is a cultivator. Shen Chao's like, no, I'm not taking apprentices. I don't want apprentices, never. And then he literally just picks up like
Yeah,
Shiru
like
and
yeah,
the other
Shiru, and then
boys.
who are the other ones? Because
I will look him up because I've got him written down right here. He has Shiwu, Yuan Song, and Duan Ying.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah,
Because I think in the show there's a scene where it's like he's talking with the master of the peak that he brought him to. I think there's a sentence somewhere about, oh, well, serve, if you're an apprentice, serve him tea kind of thing. And it's like, you're like, wait, so is for a second, and then he's like, no.
yeah. So it's almost, you think he's going to, like, I feel like you think he's going to take him as an apprentice.
With Shiwu?
With
Chen Gong?
Chen Gong,
Yeah.
yeah, and then he's just like no at the end. It's a very harsh no.
Yeah, but
too.
it is a very harsh no, which I think probably leads to why Chen Gong.
Oh yeah, it starts
has
Chen Gong's
such a-
villain arc actually.
Villain era.
Yeah.
Villain era.
But then Shiwu's
I
the
would not
one
want to-
who serves him tea on the peak.
Because they've gone back to the peaks, and he's intended
There's
to
always
give
peaks in Donghua too.
well,
That's
it's a
another
different
check
peak.
mark.
And he's intending to give Shiwu to this other peak to stay with them because Shiwu's original master was from that peak. But then they're like, no, here, now he's yours. And then he still leaves Shiwu there anyway, but he's like, yeah, this is my apprentice.
Okay, sure, yeah, but you can stay here. I don't want to actually raise him, but I'll claim this one.
I don't want responsibilities, but
He has enough responsibility, like with Yan Wuxi, I
I
think.
feel like that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to see those two. I mean, I would, but not actually. You know what I mean? It's like I'd love to see them like try and like attempt to raise a child, but I don't think it would actually.
I don't think that would work
I don't
very
think it
well.
would turn out very well for the child, but
For
you know,
like in point of fact, Yan Wuxi has raised 2 children. So
And they're not
He has
terrible.
that one. I mean, I don't know the one guy.
Was gone for like 10 years.
true. I guess
Like,
I
how
can
they
raise themselves.
Technically, Yan Wuxi raised Bian Yanmei, and then
Bian Yanmei raised Yu Xingyin, so
Oldest child syndrome, very much is what that gives.
Absent father, oldest child.
Didn't like Yan Wuxi like send you sending to the forest?
Yeah,
To like
yeah.
to like
well, half step at the bottom of Half Step Peak where they pick up Shen Chao, he sends him back there after the first little beginning part. So then he's there for like
3 years, and then he just shows up at the end of the novel again, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember you.
he's just like
You're like, hey.
go live in the forest.
In the donghua, Shen Chao kind of like parents by wrong a little bit too,
yeah.
because like she'll do something, he's like, "Let me give you some advice," and it's like, "Art."
Well, doesn't Byron also want Shen Chao?
Yeah, she's
Yes.
trying to get with him and be in his pants.
Yes,
The entire
and
time.
he's like,
He's just like,
"Actually,
yeah.
what if we talked about how you should change your whole like cultivation base and join the not dark side and
Right.
stuff?" And she's like, "What?" Like there are a couple times in the donghua where she like visibly is like, wait, hold on, what? Like, she completely switches tone from being like, hey, to wait, what are we talking about?
And this is this is like Shahaling. He's like the
Yeah,
Shahaling character.
That's why I saw her design and I was like, oh, you know what? I will read that.
Yeah.
Because that's literally
I
the way
love
to
her
make
design. It's
that
so
is
good.
Shuffle Ling is the reason I read Scrubdome, which is like not a it is the reason. It's not maybe a good one, but it is my reason. Ooh.
One of my favorite like side couples that briefly get mentioned and they never get mentioned again. There's like actually a female coupling that they talk about. They like strongly hint that they're a couple together, but then they never acknowledge it or say they have one sentence and that's it. But I love them, and it's actually Shen Chao's junior
sister,
sex sister, and I think her name is Gu Hengbo or something, and then I think it's God, I can't remember the
girl that she's with.
The girl that she's with, but she's like the recorder for all the sex, and they have a sentence because Gu Hengbo has shown up to fight at like the martial ranking fight. And she goes up to the recorder and she's like, so you left last night without saying goodbye. And then the other girl is like, well, you could have made me stay. And then that's it. And you're just like, what?
How 101 how to date me into
Right? And I'm like, okay, so Shen Chao's siblings don't know how to get dates either. So
We should also, since we're talking about all the characters, we should also talk about UI.
Yes.
And like
yes.
he's the
Sorry,
in my
eyes,
opinion,
like,
I tend to compare all of the characters, and in my opinion, he's kind of the John Chang of this series because he's the scorned like brother, like the sect martial brother character.
I actually don't dislike UI, but I think he's
Shen Chao's younger martial brother.
Yeah, but he's actually older. He was just taken as an apprentice after Shen Chao, so he's like a couple years older than Shen Chao. But he's
jealous of Shen
considered
Chao.
younger than him because of when he was like taken as an apprentice.
He's like jealous of Shen Chao's thing, and he wants to be. He plots to get rid of Shen Chao.
Interesting. Yeah, he's the one. He finds out. He's the one that you read the novel. You find out he's been in league with this guy who got exiled
to the
by
Central
Shen Chao's
Plains,
master
and then
and he's the one who's responsible for giving Shen Chao the poison.
He poisons him before the
everything.
battle. That's why he loses. In the beginning.
But it's very interesting because you read it and you can really feel sorry for him because he's been manipulated by everybody and not necessarily overlooked by his master, but like he's got a really interesting mental thing going on. Like I would love to just do a deep dive into his mental state because he's just very
like he's being manipulated by one of Shen Chao's older martial sect brothers is actually manipulating him and setting up the whole thing.
Yeah, again, like I said, his Shen Chao's check is not
like
pure.
The main bad guy, and he's doing what he's doing out of like he genuinely believes he's going to help the sect and Shen Chao by removing Shen Chao as the leader.
Also have like a crush on Shen Chao?
I think it's implied in the. I believe it's implied, but it's not ever.
Shen Chao is like this beautiful man. Like it's made very apparent in like the novel and in like everyone's like, oh, he's so pretty.
He's so pretty. I must take him to my harem.
There's this one line in one of the chapters, and it's like, oh, what was it? It's some character. They're looking at Shen Chao, and they're like, there was nothing worth it. There was no worth him except for maybe his face. And I'm like, okay. And it's like said like several times. Like every time I turn to Shen Chao, they're like, even if they hate him, they're like, well, I guess he has a nice face.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Everyone at least wants to like get with Shen Chao. And Shen Chao this entire time he's trying to be pure and like he's
just like, no, leave me alone. I want to go live my ace life.
The one character we were just talking about, I would say he reminds me a lot of Yu Qingyan too, kind of mixed with a couple because of the manipulation thing and like in the donghua how like he kind of acts around Shen Chao gives very much that kind of vibe like with Yu Qingyan and Shen Qingchu kind of thing. where it's like he's very, I mean, obviously he's hiding a lot of stuff from Chen Chao, but he's very like, you know, I want to say like sickeningly sweet almost when he's like, oh, you're back, you know, and like all this stuff. And then also kind of like the scorned brother element of like Xing Chen, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Yeah, like, and there's like I create parallels in my head to remember all the characters. But yeah, that's really good too.
I also really love his donghua design because he has like the shiniest eyeliner ever. And I'm like, purely for that reason, I enjoy you. It's literally like glitter. If you go and you look and like zoom up, it's like glitter under his eyeliner, and I'm just like, bro.
I think he makes a really compelling villain because he's another one of those characters who's like, he's arguably, he's absolutely doing the wrong thing, but arguably he's doing it for the right reason.
Well, and I was
or
going
at
to say,
least what he considers to be the right
Autumns,
reason.
like,
So you could absolutely see how,
but you can absolutely like understand his motivation to see it from his point of view, to be like, yeah, you're not wrong. You're doing this in the wrong way, but you're not exactly wrong for what you want to do, to be like, let's make the sect connect to the world and help people again. And be powerful.
Well, and Thousand Autumns plays a lot with like gray morality and like, you know, what is right and what is wrong. And I mean, like, it's interesting because you see a lot of that, and then like you see a lot of what Chen Chao struggles with to like try to be good throughout all of this stuff where he doesn't exactly know.
One of the most interesting things to me about Thousand Autumns, and if you guys have read this, maybe you can back me up on this, but like,
maybe
Chen Chao is the main character. You never get to see anything he's thinking or anything from his point of view. The novel is about him and it follows him, but the only thing you get is him verbally saying things and then reacting to the situation. Or to other people like doing things to him, but you never get to see his internal thoughts or dialogue or anything. So like, you don't actually know what he's thinking, because for all we know, he could be cussing Yan Wuxi out in his head, but he's just like, yes, this is fine.
Or just like this montage of dancing bears and fluffy clouds.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's really interesting because
I feel like that's like part of what adds to him we assume he's a righteous character because we always see these righteous actions and speeches and what he says, but we never actually get to hear anything that he thinks like you would in most novels. So it's to me that's very interesting, because that was also really interesting going in reading, because honestly, even with all the other Danmei that I've read, I've never read anything where you don't get to hear the main character's thoughts. Like, you get to hear Yan Wuxi's thoughts, you get to hear other people's thoughts occasionally, or at least their intentions, but you don't get that with Chen Chao, which is really interesting.
I agree with you. I think there are a couple moments where, rather than like not hearing his thoughts, I feel like you do get to like see his thoughts, or they describe like what's going on. Like I started rereading it, and I probably got like 30 chapters in. There are those moments in the novel where the information, the books, if they're all after that they want to get the information, he reaches like a moment of like epiphany, and they describe that moment, what he's experiencing in his own mind, but it's not prose. It's like, it's not what he's actually speaking, but you get to see inside his mind. But in the same way, because it's harder to understand. I find that interesting too.
And I would absolutely love to like see what he's thinking, especially
I would love to
like
see his thoughts, because sometimes what he says is so, or his reaction to certain things is so backwards, and like sometimes what he does is like so contrary to like his character. Even like there's a point in time where, and I remember this one specifically because I actually wrote a fanfic about it where I went in and like did Chen Chao's thoughts because of his reaction is so weird. But it's when they're in the first temple, when they find like everybody's there and Yan Wuxi shows up and does the thing with his eyes, so then he goes blinder afterwards, and Chen Gong is there, and to this point he's been protecting Chen Gong. And they're sleeping, and Chen Chao's meditating, and people like that are searching for one of these books that everybody's trying to find break in, and somehow they end up getting, Chen Gong challenges them or something, and they end up like trying to strangle him, and like Chen Chao is just like, okay, whatever, and he's just sitting there like gonna let it happen, and then one of the characters says something to Chen Gong. And that's when Shen Chao gets up and is like, no, you can't hurt him anymore. And it's really interesting because you're like, what the heck? If you actually think about it, you're like, what was the line that the character crossed at this point where he was like,
it was fine, you can kill this kid. But now you've said something and now I'm going to not let this happen. It's so
maybe he
interesting.
wanted Chengong to like show his strength or something. I don't know.
Because you don't get to
I
see
think
Shen Chao's thoughts. And I'm just like,
Shen
this is
Chao
really interesting.
is like anti Chengong. He's like, I'm not taking you as my disciple, but I will take these other 3 kids. And, you know, they may be strangling you, but I won't really do anything until someone else gets involved, and then maybe I'll step in. He's like,
Because
it's like, this is the
bullying
one
you is
exception.
my sole responsibility, apparently. Tacking onto the, like, just the thought, not hearing Shen Chao. So I think it's very interesting, specifically. I know this book doesn't have a lot of romance in it, but when you consider that they eventually are supposed to be the couple, that's very interesting. Like, I remember being very surprised when CJ told me about this, because I was like, wait, what is he thinking then in like those moments? Because like, are there moments where he's like thinking fondly of Yang Wuxi? Why would I not? But like,
well, I bet he thinks he's hot.
Probably, but no, I think he says he's attractive at some point. But it's actually very interesting, and thank you for bringing this up again, Heather, because this is one of the things that I really find kind of weird with the way the book is written, with not being able to see Shen Chao's thoughts, because the only time you hear him verbalize his thoughts about Yan Wuxi is after Yan Wuxi has hurt his head, which is the end of the first donghua season. He starts healing, but basically his skull gets cracked open, so he has a brain injury, and because of that, he develops multiple personalities.
Yes, I love this part of the book.
Shen Chao, and this is while they're in the Monkey Kingdom, Shen Chao really likes the young version of him.
I know, because
and he's like, oh, we could be friends.
Childish
and
mind
he's
of
looking out for this
Yanushi,
version.
like his personality is
and
so
he
cute
likes
and,
that
like,
version of him. And then when Yanushi kind of gets healed and he basically
all his personalities kind of merge,
has merged back into himself, he basically tells Shen Chao, I've killed that version that you liked of me. It's just me now. Like, you will never see that version of that
so
child
sad.
self of me again. And
It's
Shen
still in there.
Chao literally rolls over and starts mourning, like genuinely crying. And Yan Wuxi is like mocking him, and he's like, "What? Are you like crying over that stupid, weak version of me? I'm right here." And Shen Chao is like, "I don't like you. I liked the other one, and I'm never going to like you. We are never going. Like, I respect you as a person, and I'm keeping you alive because I need you to solve all these political dramas. But I don't like you." And we will never be friends.
And then, like 30 chapters later, they're kissing, and you're like, what? Because there's that lack of seeing what's going on in Shen Chao's mind, and that's the only time he verbalizes like any sort of anything on Yan Wuxi.
Yeah, he likes
so
the one
it's
part of
really
Yan
interesting
Wuxi.
because you see what Yan Wuxi falling in love.
And trying to be like, I'm going to try to be a better person for Shen Chao. Try. He's still Yan Wuxi. He's awful at it. But he's trying. He uses Shen Chao's sword to scale fish. That's, and gives Shen Chao a heart attack. That sort of thing. He's trying. But you don't see anything from Shen Chao. And then all of a sudden, like, yeah, he's the one that kisses Yan Wuxi in the end. And you're just kind of like, at least for me, I was like, okay, I'm here for this, but also where did this come from? Because you don't get that like sort of development with Shen Chao being like, oh, maybe he's not as bad. I can see him trying to. You don't get to see his thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting stylistic choice, considering that Shen Chao is blind most of the book, and many authors, and I mean this is from a Western perspective. I don't know how this is if there is a certain stylistic choice that people writers from the eastern side of the world choose to do with a blind character, but I feel like in a lot of Western media that's kind of like an opening for those like other literary devices where you can really get inside a character's head because they don't have a sense that the reader has, kind of thing. So there's more focus on that mental side because I feel like you're a little bit more exposed to their thoughts when there's some sort of sense that is disabled or not fully there. kind of thing. I think it was a very interesting like thought for me when I was told that, oh yeah, no, you don't hear Shen Chao's thoughts. You just kind of hear him speak, you see his reactions, and like that's kind of where he is.
And maybe Thousand Autumns doesn't need it, because I feel like the thought, like getting into the character's head, also helps you kind of like I guess empathize with them and like understand that there's reasonings behind the horrible things. Because if you think like Modao Zushi, I think there's parallels between Wei Wuxian and Jin Gunyao, and like Jin Gunyao is the enemy, but you sympathize with Wei Wuxian's like story and like what he had to do to survive, and to like all in all everything was against him, how he had to do things. But like Shen Chao is just this white character, and like he's good regardless. You don't need to get into his head. Everyone's like, oh, you're so good and pretty.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad choice. I just thought it was a very interesting choice based off of my own experience in like reading about characters who are in similar situations. And this is just a very different thing to what I'm used to. And like I've read very little of the book, but like I think it is a very interesting and like compelling concept to not be inside his head. Mm-hmm. Especially with those situations, and for him to be quite literally the main character.
If you do choose to read the book for its romance, I think it makes it really hard to do that, specifically because the genre relies so much on the fact that you can see inside the main character's head. Because of that is something that I did struggle with throughout the novel. I empathize extremely strongly with Shen Chao, despite not being able to see his own thoughts. So like realizing that now, I find that interesting, and I don't know why, but it's kind of cool.
It's interesting to me because like in the extras after they've gotten together, you actually like do see Yan Wuxi being more of a caring partner. So, like, obviously something has changed, and he is trying to be more caring.
He gets a pet deer. That's very, like...
Yeah, but that's in the actual novel.
Oh, yeah,
but yeah. So you see Yan Wuxi trying to change and trying to be more caring to some degree. And especially in the extras, like the later extras, because I think they're still releasing extras. Every time they do a reprint of the novel, the author writes another extra. And I read the last one, and it was like that long. It's a very short paragraph, but it's cute. It was them like waking up in bed in the morning, and like Yan Wuxi being like, "Aw," and then kissing Shen Chao, and Shen Chao being like, "Hiss, no." It was cute.
Excellent.
And you do get to see some of those sweet moments, but that's not until the extras, and it's not until after they get together. So it's really interesting because like Julian said, I don't really ship them in the novel. Like I ship them in the donghua. And I like them post after they've gotten together, and I like a lot of the fan arts and stuff.
I like the fan-in a lot.
I love like so many people have written
fan-ins.
so many good like fix-it stuff, or just stuff like fix that get them together.
Or that give you
really
Shen
good.
Chao's perspective in his head.
Yeah, exactly. And so those are really good, but it's hard to ship them in the novel because
it's weird because they're meant to be together because it is a Danmei novel, but it's also really interesting to ship them because it's not really shippy in the novel. It's almost more platonic,
which is really, really different from, especially if you're coming from like,
why do all these people want to sleep with me, please?
Yeah, well, he literally says that, and he says that I'm not gay and I don't like women. He says that multiple times.
I'm not gay and I don't like women. That's what no one.
That's what he says.
Arrow Ace King.
So, I know all of us haven't read much of the novel, but we've seen the donghua, we've seen the novel, so including all of that, let's go around and just say our favorite scenes to wrap everything up. So I guess I should start. I talked about the monkey people already. So, I think my favorite scene is actually in the extras when Shen Chao has left Yan Wuxi. He's going to go travel the world by himself. And Yan Wuxi is like, okay, fine, because he's never let Shen Chao out of his sight until, like, these past 6 years. So Shen Chao's like, goodbye, I'm leaving. And he leaves. And then he can't stop thinking about Yan Wuxi. And Yan Wuxi sets up this entire caravan. You find out that Yan Wuxi has set up this entire caravan that's traveling with Shen Chao just to give Shen Chao a scenario to think about how he feels about Yan Wuxi, which is sneaky, but also kind of like, you're an idiot, dude, but I love you. So then Shen Chao starts asking the people in the caravan, well, how do you know if you like someone? What do you do if you like someone? Blah, blah, blah. So now he's thinking about all this, and you still don't get to see what's in his head, but you hear him talking about this to people. And then he leaves the caravan, and he goes to this palace of another kingdom to, like, he's heard that they're asking for Taoist monks to give advice to the advisor, so or the king, so he's there, and he's sitting with all these other Taoist monks, and then he hears one of the ones at the back, like, doing something annoying, like tapping his foot on the floor, and he's just like, who the and he's like looking down, and it's Yan Wuxi in Taoist robes, and Shen Chao is just like, the are you doing here? And they get into an argument in front of everybody else, and the ruler comes in and they're still arguing, and then they turn and they start including the ruler in their argument, and it's just like they argue like a married couple, and you're just like, you could, and I think that's the moment I first started being like, aha, here's the romance where they really did miss each other and they really want to be together, maybe, but also like they're like, why are you here? Why are you not, like, and it's so that was one of my favorite moments, just because I thought it was really stupid, because Yan Wuxi's an idiot.
But
He is, but he's very smart.
He's like, no, I'm gonna let you go, Ah Chow, but also not.
I've been thinking, I think there's two moments that really stuck with me, so I'm gonna say them both. But like, they're hiding, someone is chasing after Shen Chao and Yan Wuxi, and they're hiding in this like kind of abandoned temple, I think, in the woods, and like basically they're getting closer, and they're hiding in the inside of this like statue.
Is it the one where he puts him in the Buddha?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're being chased by like the other demonic cultivator sects, and then the head of one of the
Pinky, you remember more than
political sects or something.
But basically like Shen Chao's like, okay, we can fight, like, let's go, we can think, and Yan Wuxi's like, no, I think, so he basically, like, locks down all of Shen Chao's, like, acupuncture points and he can't move, and he, like, barricades him in this statue, and he's like, alright, I'm gonna go mislead them, and Shen Chao just sitting there cursing him out, like, I want to, like,
the best thing is Yan Wuxi does all of this, and then they find Shen Chao anyway.
I just think I thought it was just a really funny thing. It's like,
because I think that's the first moment Yan Wuxi is like, I'm gonna like sacrifice myself to take care of you, as opposed to throw you to harm's way. So it is a significant point in the novel, but also I just think it's funny he goes to all that work, but then they find Shen Chao anyway.
I know, and like this entire time, like is Shen Chao just like cursing him in his head as Yan Wuxi runs and like traipses into the forest, like trying to like I don't know what the heck he's doing, but no. And then my second favorite thing is all of the cross-dressing scenes, and we haven't even talked about the cross-dressing scenes.
Yes, the cross-dressing scenes.
But basically, especially the one after Yan Wuxi has like his multiple personality splits, and it's literally like, I think it's a child personality.
Yeah, where he wants the candy.
Yeah, he wants the candy.
He wants the candy in the shape of Ah Chow, and then he eats its head, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the child brain of Yan Wuxi is cross-dressing to hide.
Because everybody's looking for Yan Wuxi, because they figured out he's still alive after having been injured. So Shen Chao has disguised him, dressing him as a woman. Yes. But he's still having multiple personalities at this point.
And then they go through this market or something, and like there's somebody selling like these sugar candies, and he eats on Joe's head. So
all right, Nori, is there anything in the first like
my first 12 chapters of the novel that I can point to? In general, I really do just like Yan Wuxi's attitude of fuck around and find out. He's so just like, yeah, this man fell off the mountain. Fuck it, let's take it back. Let's take him back with us. Like, let's convince him, like, we're doing this. And I liked it because it reminded me so much of the Yi City arc from Mother Zisha. I was like, oh shit, this is literally just like Xiao Xingsheng and Xu Weiyang. Like, yes.
Actually, no, you're right. I didn't even think about that.
My first thought, it's because I've been having brain rot recently, so I was immediately like, oh my god, excellent, this is just what I want.
I'm more familiar with the donghua, so I'm specifically talking about the donghua. So one that immediately comes to mind is, it's one that gets put on TikTok a lot. So I see it constantly too. It's so Shen Chao kind of like leaves when she's like, hey, peace, I don't like you, adios, have a nice life, I guess. And he's trying to get like money on the streets to live, and he's doing fortune telling. And Yan Wuxi sits down, and Shen Chao's like, I'm fucking packing up, bye. And he goes, oh, no, you have to read my fortune. You're a fortune teller, read my fortune. So he's like, okay, whatever. And they start doing the thing, and I don't know if it's Yan Wuxi that like grabs
Mhm.
his hand or Shenchao,
Yeah.
and he says something like, "Oh, if you wanted to like touch me, all you have to do is like it's something along those lines," and and the look on Shenchao's face is like,
Kill me, please.
I would rather eat arsenic.
I forgot they added that scene.
Yeah,
I saw it in the
it's
novel.
It's
that one's
really
not the
good.
novel.
It
But
is
yeah.
a really funny scene.
There's a point, like right after Shan Chao confronts Uai for the first time again, and they leave Shendu, and Yang Wuxi's just like, let's fight again, and Shan Chao almost dies again. But then there's like that's like the last fight before Yang Wuxi just starts flirting with him constantly.
Mhm.
They're staying at like an inn or someplace, and he's like, what are like your darkest thoughts or whatever, and then Sean like almost opens his mouth because you almost get to hear what's inside his head, and
Right.
I love that moment but also hate that moment
Oh.
because you don't get to find out. It's hard to tell there. You almost can tell if Shancho actually thinks
Has a dark thought.
Yeah.
yeah.
I also love all the inn scenes where Yanushi keeps insisting, oh, but we need one room with one bed. Like, and Jinjao's like, no, 2 rooms. 2 rooms.
Okay, but another one of my favorite
We
things.
could talk about this for a
we
while, I
could, is one of the times where Yan Wuxi is trying to impart to Shen Chao that he thinks he's changed his mind. Shen Chao is special and unique, and he's going to treasure him, right? But instead of saying words like that, being like, Shen Chao, I'm sorry. I actually care about you a lot. He's like a guy who has a great treasure, but then he found a neat rock.
Yeah.
And he likes the neat rock better, so he kept the neat rock in his pocket. And Shen Chao is just like, huh? And you could see little question marks like over his head. Like you would just see him being like, what the f-? And Yun Wuxi's just like, yes, I have successfully imparted my feelings. He's a rock. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to wrap up now because we've been chatting for quite a while. So thank you all for joining us. If you watched all the way through this video, we hope we will see you in the next one.
Like, subscribe, share,
share,
comment, all the
copyright,
YouTube
all that
things.
stuff. I'm Chaotic Neutral Cosplay.
I'm Perfection. You'll find me on all the social medias and through CJ too. It's spelled kind of weird, but you'll find me.
I'm Cloudpop.cos, anywhere you would want to find me.
I am one hell of a cosplayer on most things, Instagram and YouTube, where I'm usually alive most of the time. Twitter is Yulin Kazoo, and then anything else is, I think, Valkyrie.cos. So,
And I'm Mikaelya.cos on Insta.
And thank you guys all for joining me. I hope you had a good time. I enjoyed this. So I like that we all had read little snippets of this one, so that was enjoyable.
Well, and I kept getting reminded of things as we were talking,
yeah.
and I'm like, oh yeah, cross-dressing and then like.
All right, we will see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.